Sayın Rektörüm, onur konuğumuz Profesör Doktor Sayın Madjid Samii'ye, Sayın Senato üyeleri, Sayın hocalarım ve değerli konuklarımız. Üsküdar Üniversitesi Fahri Doktora takdimi ve NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi Profesör Doktor Madjid Samii'ye Nöroşirurji Merkezi açılış törenine hoş geldiniz. Bugün size Türkçe ve İngilizce olarak sunum yapacağım. Dear President, dear our guest of honor, Professor Madjid Samii'ye, dear senators, dear professors and dear guests. Welcome to Üsküdar University's Honorary Doctorate Program and opening of NPİSTANBUL Brain Hospital, Professor Madjid Samii'ye Neurosurgery Center. I'll be delivering this presentation to you both in Turkish and English. Üsküdar Üniversitesi Senatosu, Beyin Cerrahı Profesör Doktor Sayın Madjid Samii'ye Fahri Doktora unvanı verme kararı aldı. Bugün bu töreni gerçekleştirmek, takiben Profesör Samii'den beyin cerrahisi alanında dünyadaki gelişmeler başlıklı konferansını dinlemek ve Profesör Samii'nin adını taşıyan Nöroşirurji Merkezi'nin açılışını yapmak üzere toplanmış bulunuyoruz. Üsküdar University Senate has decided to present an honorary doctorate title to Professor Samii'ye. We have gathered here today to perform this event, benefit from Professor Samii'ye's conference on new global developments in neurosurgery, and inaugurate the Professor Madjid Samii'ye Neurosurgery Center. Sayın konuklarımız, konuşmalara geçmeden önce sizlere üniversite ve hastanemizin kurumsal filmlerini izletmek istiyoruz. Dear guests, before we start with our speeches, we would like to present our universities and our hospitals' corporate videos.
Bu serüvene bir iddiamız var diyerek başladım. İtiraf edelim, biz bilimde büyük iddiaları severiz. İnsanı anlamaya çalışmak gibi mesela. Ya da bilim üretirken ilkeleri gerçekleştirmek gibi. Bu iddialarımızın en zorlu olanıysa insanı anlamak olması. Bunun farkındayız. En başından beri insanı anlama isteğimiz, davranış bilimleri alanındaki çalışmalarımızın temeliydi. Ve bu bilimsel bakışı Türkiye'ye yaymak, genç nesillere aktarmak, dünyaya anlatmak, bir efor oluşturmak, hatta üniversite kurmak bizi en çok heyecanlandıran şey. Şimdi bu heyecanın gerçeğe dönüştüğü noktadayız. 15 bine yakın öğrencimiz, 350'den fazla akademik kadromuzla bu yolda ilerlerken özgürlükçü, çoğulcu, eşitlikçi, katılımcı olmayı bilirsin. Özgür düşüncenin, katılımcılığın, eşit ve çok sesliliğin olduğu bir ortamda bilim üretmenin önemine inanın. Her şeyden önemlisi, iyi insan olmanın ötesinde bir şey olamayacağı bilincini hep taşıdı. İnsani değerlerin toplumları yücelten, bilimde ve kültürde gelişmesini sağlayan özellikler olduğunu bilerek, toplumu ve insanı anlayan bir sorumlulukla bilim üretiyoruz. 5 yıldır iddialarımızdan ödül vermeden, dünyayı değiştirecek bilimsel projelerin peşindeyiz. Amerika Başkanı Obama'nın başlattığı Brain projesinin Türkiye ve Orta Doğu temsilciliğini aldı. Türkiye'nin ilk bilim ve fikir festivalini düzenliyoruz. Nöro pazarlama çalışmalarını ilk başlatan üniversite olarak kaynaklara geçiyoruz. Türkiye'deki ilk tasavvuf araştırmaları enstitüsünü kurarak tasavvufu davranış bilimleri çerçevesinde akademik platforma taşıyoruz. Dünyanın 3. Nöropsikofarmakoloji Araştırma Merkezi'ni kurarak bilimin uygulama alanları içinde önemli adımlar atıyoruz. Pozitif psikolojinin Türkiye'deki ilk akademik uygulayıcısı olarak bilimde uluslararası gelişmelerin ülkemizdeki öncülüğünü yapmaktan gurur duyuyoruz. Üsküdar Üniversitesi Kuluçka Merkezi Brain Park'ta öğrencilerimizin parlak fikirlerini hayata geçirerek bilimi yeni nesillere aktarıyoruz. Bilimsel yayınlarımız ve ARGE çalışmalarımızla geleceğe ışık tutuyoruz. Biz tercihimizi insanı anlamaktan yana kullanıyoruz. Çünkü biz insanı anlayarak dünyayı değiştirebilecek bilim üretmenin inancını taşıyoruz. İnsanı anlar, dünyayı değiştirir. Üsküdar Üniversitesi.
is born the same, with the same number of brain cells. Each person firstly develops a sense of touch while still in the mother's womb. Then feelings begin to form. Feelings are processed up to the finest detail of them, and we get ready to understand the world. And every human is both the same and different after being born, grows through being finely processed, differentiates. Feelings, intelligence, brain grow bigger. They grow and evolve. Us too. For nearly 20 years, we discovered thousands of different details in thousands of people. We progressed a little bit more with each different person, and we went a little further each time. We have always been careful to raise the level of mental health of the community and contribute solutions to the problems that are related to mental health. We use the latest technology with scientific references. We became a fully fledged brain-derived hospital by adding neurology to our fields of expertise. On the way to becoming Europe's second brain clinic, we have graciously allowed the milestones that prepared us today. March 2017, we became the second brain hospital in Europe in our new building named NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesine. We started our journey as a general hospital focused on the brain within a 30,000 square meter closed area, 160 bed capacity, fully equipped operating rooms and intensive care units, and we are expanding the number of our experts in neurosurgery, general surgery, otorhinolaryngology, cardiology, chest diseases, infectious diseases, and pediatric neurology. Being Europe's second brain hospital, we created an infrastructure with globally accepted treatment from neuromodulation therapy to functional surgery and electronic implant therapy. We have 1A operating rooms that provide many treatment fields ranging from robotic neuronavigation surgery, aneurysm surgery to Parkinson and epilepsy surgeries. Hospital, we offer the first and only 1A ultra-clean operating room equipment of Turkey, approved by an independent accredited organization, which obtains superior technological infrastructure facilities that support surgical operations in all branches. We serve intensive care patients of all levels with our 16-bed, fully equipped intensive care unit. In our new building, we give close attention to provide patients comfort and obtain our scientific and ethical approach in every single detail. We provide high comfort for patients and their relatives without compromising safety with our standard and A-type suite rooms. From the door handles in the room to the shower heads, we designed all the furniture with the thought of keeping the safety of the patients in the foreground. We have created private visiting rooms to protect patients' privacy. We have winter gardens and daytime lounges on every floor to make our patients feel at home. We made a visible difference through our high technology. For nearly 20 years, we have always been thoughtful to offer better treatment, improve science, change people's worlds, and to simply make them better. To provide the methods and conditions envisioned by contemporary science, we have become the second brain hospital in Europe, aiming to use the possibilities of advanced technology. We got inspired by the brain to achieve excellence. NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesine.
Sayın konuklarımız, bugünkü programımız Üsküdar Üniversitesi Rektörü ve NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi Yönetim Kurulu Başkanı Profesör Doktor Nevzat Tarhan'ın açılış konuşmalarıyla başlayacak. Ardından Üsküdar Üniversitesi Rektör Yardımcısı Profesör Doktor Muhsin Konuk, Fahri Doktora takdim gerekçesini okuyacak ve cübbe giyme seremonisine geçilecek. Takiben Profesör Doktor Madjid Samii'den beyin cerrahisi alanında dünyadaki gelişmeler başlıklı konferansı dinleyeceğiz. Bu konferanstan sonra Profesör Doktor Madjid Samii'ye Nöroşirurji Merkezi'nin açılışı gerçekleşecek. Dear guests, our program will begin with the opening speech from Üsküdar University President Professor Nevzat Tarhan. Later on, the Vice President of Üsküdar University, Professor Muhsin Konuk, will read the justification of presenting the honorary doctorate, and the gown ceremony will take place. Following this, Professor Samii'ye will give his speech on new global developments in neurosurgery. After this conference, Professor Madjid Samii'ye Neurosurgery Center will be inaugurated. Sayın konuklarımız, şimdi programın açılış konuşmasını yapmak üzere Rektörümüz Profesör Doktor Sayın Nevzat Tarhan'ı kürsüye arz ediyorum. Dear guests, I kindly invite our President, Professor Nevzat Tarhan, to deliver his opening speech.
Dear guests, today is a very important day for our university and our hospital because as Europe's second and Turkey first neuroscientific hospital, we live, I think, we live a historic day. As you know, Professor Madjid Samii'ye is the founder and administrator of the first neuroscience hospital in Europe. The title of the honorary doctorate will be presented to him as Üsküdar University Senate. We learned that Dr. Madjid not only inspired the hospital in Hanover, but also inspired institution in Iran, in China, we learned now. During the establishment of our hospital, we acted on the following aspects. First of all, as a psychiatrist, we are trying to get new information when we cannot cure our patients. Secondly, there is a revolution in medical area, in medical treatment, and everything is developing rapidly. Moreover, since the now Freudian coach, Freudian sitting treatment period, pharmacogenetics and neurotechnological approach have been discussed more extensively. I think if Freud has been lived now, he would support our studies, I think. Getting anatomic and functional image of both refractory and psychiatric patients has become routine now. Our hospital we use routinely. How did this happen? Why did this happen? First, science and technology are very advanced. Everything was digitalized. As all of this led to psychiatric examination and the use of technology in treatment, in 2013, U.S. President launched Brain Initiative project with NIH, with NIMH, National Institute Mental Health. The new scientific field was brain science, so a new space of science. Brain field is new space of science, the common thought. How does the human feel? How does a human think? The brain, how the brain work? How does the brain work? How does human feel? what is brain working, how is the brain working, we have to discover more than you can. It is the continuation of psychiatric neuroscience and should reflect this is in the practice of therapy. This is the position where the university and hospital came out. Alzheimer's disease and autistic spectrum disease and schizophrenia, ADHD and depression, there are new brain research area needs the, for this reason, we need the new brain research. Üsküdar Üniversitesi and science partner NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hospital have been established with a new vision, the new concept, by adding neurosurgery field for this area to psychiatric and neurological treatment. The Hanover International Neurosurgical Institute Hospital has been wonderful inspiration and example to us. Naturally, we want to express our thanks to this organization and Professor Madjid Samii'ye on this occasion, on this good opinion. I also thank the member of the Senate members for supporting their honorary approach, their consent. I want to thank all members. Thank you again for your participation and support today. Thank you very much.
Sayın Rektörümüze teşekkür ediyoruz. Sayın konuklarımız, Fahri Doktora törenine geçmeden önce Profesör Doktor Madjid Samii'ye ile ilgili bir filmimiz bulunuyor. Birazdan izleyeceğiz. Thank you, dear President. Dear guests, before we carry on with the honorary doctorate ceremony, we would like to present a video about Professor Samii'ye. Let's have a look.
Professor Madjid Samii'ye was born in 19 June 1937 in Tehran, Iran, and was grown in a scientific family. After finishing his high school education in Iran, he moved to Germany and started his medical study at University of Mainz. Regarding his achievements during his medical study and his final university scores, as receiving the highest achievable score in the final medical examination, he received the prize of Iranian Science Ministry for the best Iranian students in Europe. After graduation from the medical school and finishing a secondary study in biology, he started his specialty education in the field of neurosurgery in the University of Mainz and received his board of neurosurgery in 1970. In April 1970, and in the age of 32, he started his career as associate professor and vice director of neurosurgical department at University of Mainz. 1 year later, in 1971, he became the professor of neurosurgery. In this year, he received an offer from the National University of Iran to become professor and chairman of neurosurgical department. He refused such an important position in order to continue his scientific career in the University of Mainz. In 1977, he became the chairman of neurosurgical department in Hanover, Germany, Neustadt Hospital, a position that he possessed till 2003. After several calls for the chair of neurosurgery from University of Leiden, Netherlands and Mainz, Germany, he finally accepted the chair of neurosurgery in Hanover School of Medicine, Germany in 1988. Since 1996, he acted as the chairman of both neurosurgical departments in Neustadt Hospital and Hanover School of Medicine. In 2000, Professor Samii'ye founded the International Neuroscience Institute in Hanover and was nominated as president. In 2003, he retired from the chairs of neurosurgical departments in Neustadt Hospital and Hanover School of Medicine and devoted himself to further development of International Neuroscience Institute. In 2004, Professor Samii'ye also accepted the presidency of China International Neuroscience Institute at the Capital Medical University in Beijing, China. In 2010, Iran International Neuroscience Institute in Tehran has been planned and the construction procedure has been started. Professor Madjid Samii'ye is founder and president of Iran INI, which will be inaugurated in near future. A major aspect of Professor Sami'ye's scientific career was his devotion to education and enhancement of neurosurgery. From the beginning of his career as a professor of neurosurgery, he put a major emphasis on education of neurosurgeons from all over the world. He had regular annual or biannual courses in microneurosurgery in the University of Mainz since 1971. In 1979, Professor Sami'ye established the world's first educational course in skull-base surgery in Hanover. Aside from his regular courses in Germany, he started to plan similar educational courses in many countries all over the world to enhance the knowledge of neurosurgery. In 2004, as the president of INI China, he organized a permanent annual international course in clinical neurosurgery. Also in 2004, the Directory Board of Iranian Social Security Organization has offered Professor Sami'ye the chairmanship of neurosurgical department in Minat Hospital in Tehran. Under his leadership, a very strong education program for the staff has been planned and performed. The department is now one of the most developed neurosurgical centers. Since 2006, Professor Sami'ye established continuous international neurosurgical symposiums in Tehran under his direction. Professor Madjid Samii'ye was a founding president and founding member of several national and international foundations and societies. During his scientific life, Professor Sami'ye received many honorary professorships, honorary doctorates, and visiting professorships from all over the world. He has also given many honorary and memorial lectures. Professor Sami'ye is honorary member of many national academies of medical science and national, international, and continental societies of neurosurgery. He has received several prestigious national and international awards, honors, and medals. He was also a guest of honor in many neurosurgical meetings and had given more than 1,000 lectures as special and invited lecturer in international congresses. He has been a guest of honor at the neurosurgery meetings held in many countries in the world, from Germany to India and China to Russia. After being elected as the president of German Society of Neurosurgery, German Society of Skull-Base Surgery, International Skull-Base Society, International Skull-Base Study Group, and German Society of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, he was elected as the president of the World Federation of Neurosurgical Societies from 1997 to 2001. Since 2001, he acted as the honorary president of WFNS and honorary president of WFNS Foundation. In 2011, WFNS has appointed Professor Madjid Samii'ye as ambassador for Africa. He has created in this position the project of Africa 100. Professor Sami'ye is editor, member of editorial board, and honorary editor of many medical journals. He has published 17 books in the field of neurosurgery. His scientific works are also published in more than 500 scientific articles. One of the most important achievements of Professor Sami'ye is education of more than 1,000 neurosurgeons around the world. Most of these neurosurgeons are in leading positions in their countries. In 2002, his students and friends founded an international neurosurgical society under the name of Madjid Samii'ye Congress of International Neurosurgeons, which was later changed its name to Madjid Samii'ye Society of International Neurosurgeons. In 2011, the World Federation of Neurosurgical Societies, in an unprecedented action, named its Medal of Honor after Professor Madjid Samii'ye. The Madjid Samii'ye Medal of Honor will be awarded every 2 years along with a prize of 1,000 euros to the most prominent neurosurgeon worldwide, and is a high honor for the recipient. The first medal and prize ceremony was held in 2011 in Brazil, along with a WFNS meeting, and the winner was Maurice Schux, the professor of Marseille University in France. Professor Samii'ye is married to Madjid Samii'ye in 1961 and has 2 children. His daughter Amira Samii'ye studied economy, and his son Professor Amir Samii'ye is a famous professor of neurosurgery and currently acts as the vice director of the Neurosurgical Center at INI Hanover.
Şimdi de Üsküdar Üniversitesi Senatosu tarafından belirlenen bugünkü Fahri Doktora gerekçesini arz etmek üzere Rektör Yardımcımız Profesör Doktor Sayın Muhsin Konuğu kürsüye arz ediyorum. I kindly invite our Vice President, Professor Muhsin Konuk, to read the justification of presenting the honorary doctorate.
Dear respected guest, the following expression was decided by the Üsküdar Üniversitesi Senate with full consensus. Because of his global important studies and scientific contributions in the field of neuroscience, which had high impact on research and clinical applications, he has been awarded the title of honorary doctorate degree by Üsküdar Üniversitesi Senate. Thank you very much.
Profesör Doktor Sayın Muhsin Konuk'a teşekkür ediyoruz. Kendisini yenileri uğurlarken sırada Fahri Doktora takdim töreni bulunuyor. Takdimde bulunmak üzere rektörümüz Profesör Doktor Sayın Nevzat Tarhan'ı ve Fahri Doktorasını almak üzere Profesör Doktor Madjid Samii'yi sahneye davet ediyorum. Thank you, Professor. Next we have the honorary doctorate ceremony. I kindly ask our President, Professor Nevzat Tarhan, to join us on stage to present the honorary doctorate, and I kindly ask Professor Samii'ye to join us on stage to receive his honorary doctorate. Nevzat Hocam teşekkür ediyoruz. Profesör Doktor Sayın Madjid Samii'yi beyin cerrahisi alanında dünyadaki gelişmeler başlıklı konferansı için kürsüye davet ediyorum. Thank you, President. Now Professor Samii'ye will conduct this conference on new developments in neurosurgery. Thank you.
Magnificence, Rector, members of the Senate, distinguished professors, dear friend Professor Aksoy, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you for this great honor which you gave me to be a member of your faculty at your Üsküdar University. I don't believe there is anything more important in the world of human being than the universities. And the most important people of the world are the students at any universities. Sometimes students looking at me say, Professor, oh, I am only a student. I say, why? You are only a student? You must be proud to be a student. All great people, one day they have been a student, nothing else. And to become member of a faculty, that is the highest honor that somebody can achieve in his life. Why? Because he is in a position to taking care of the most important people in the world who are a student. What is higher than that? To be Bill Gates, to make 100 billions, is that the highest? No. Money isn't only a number and account, but knowledge is science, is something is in your account, in your brain, not in the bank. And therefore, I would like to thank you, Magnificence, and all the members of Senate to give me this great honor to become honorary doctor, as that means member of the faculty of your university. I hope very much that, as always in my life, this create a link between your newborn brain hospital and our institute in Hanover. And that is, of course, you know, when the power and the many brains come together, you know, you can create much more. And I hope that in future you will come to Hanover and see our professors, and I will try to bring our professors to Istanbul, to you, to create together a very strong link for the future science and also clinical development. I have been asked to talk today something about the brain and the importance of the brain. You know, I would like first mention that unfortunately, human being in the history was not so interested in brain, not at all. 1,700 years BC, the Egyptian people, when somebody died, they mummified the people. You know what they have done at that time? They have took the brain and throw out, but took the heart and mummified and kept it very strongly. And Aristotle, by the way, I have received also, that is one of my, I'm proud of that, I received the Aristotle Gold Medal of Honor 20 years ago from Greece, from Thessaloniki. He at that time, that said that the soul or our mind is in heart, not in the brain. And but Platon, 450 BC, he was the first that was starting to believe that our thought is located in the brain. When we look at in the recent 100 years, we will see in every developed country, the first center which has been created was a heart center. Is that correct or not? People were very proud to have an open heart surgery. Believe me, at that time, I was a young man. I couldn't understand that. They said, I'm sorry, I don't want to reduce the, I would say, my colleagues as heart surgeon and cardiologist. Not at all. But I want only to try to compare brain with the heart, that we understand a little bit more about the brain. At that time, as young doctor, I said, my goodness, I learned the anatomy of heart. It took me a few days. Then I knew every corner, everything, arteries, what comes and what goes out, and the ventricles, and all the structures. But to learn the brain, even in 100 years you cannot study and study cannot learn how the brain. You mentioned very well how is the function of the brain. And therefore, I must say that I am very, very happy, you make me so happy that you named the hospital as a brain hospital. Don't believe that this name is important that the hospital had. No, the fact that you bring into the consciousness of the people on the street that brain has such an importance that they nominate or to designate this hospital to the brain hospital. I believe all hospitals of the world should be named brain hospital. Why? Because only if it is general surgeon, ENT, whatever, they have to run this hospital with their brain. Therefore, it is really very, very important to run. Why I came to idea in Hanover to build the building in the shape of the brain. I explained at that time, more than 20 years ago, the journalist came to me, asked me, I said, I am not doing that because I wanted to have a special structure, a special design. No, I want to bring to consciousness of the people in the world that brain is important. That was, believe me, that was my background of my thinking, how I decided to make the design of the brain, also of the brain, for the Neuroscience Institute. And now I could continue with this philosophy, but you gave me a duty to talk about the current improvement in the brain development of surgery, diagnostic, and so on. Let me start with this. I am neurosurgeon, and of course I will start with neurosurgery. How the neurosurgery was and how we have tried to change it more and more. So, I can tell you that as I started in neurosurgery, the outcome of brain surgery was for a long time not predictable. The neurosurgeon, they operated something like they didn't know what will happen with the patient. We were only concentrated on anatomy of the brain, and we believed that this could be motor area, the other will be sensory area, and tried to, and we had also no clinical diagnostic methods. If you look here, you know, I hope you know this picture. This was a picture of an American president was on that. I changed it into the 4 neurosurgeons who started in the beginning of last century to do neurosurgery. That is Victor Horsley, Kraus, Germany, also Cushing, United States, and Förster, also Germany. These gentlemen started without having any diagnostic method. So someone like you as neurologist or psychiatrist, you have examined the patient and said, I believe something in somewhere in the brain is not okay. Could be tumor or not. And then they have operated. This gentleman, Horsley, he has operated 6 acoustic neuronoma. That is the first series of acoustic neuronoma. And 5 of them died. 1 survived, but in which condition I don't want to describe. You know, the people of London, they went to his house, and on the wall of his house, they have written, there is a book about that, Murder of London. Can you imagine? In this condition, the neurosurgeon has started. I remember as I started as residents in 1964, at that time said, you know, Dr. Samii'ye, every neurosurgical department which is inaugurated, we need close to that, what is the cemetery, yeah. Because 50% of all, when the head is open, they die and they go to that. They need that. Believe me, that was at that time they told me, and I have seen that. People came by themselves and had whatever, acoustic neuroma or the meningioma or glioma, operated, brain swelling, and so on. Next day was in coma, and then you couldn't do anything. That was the condition I started. In the diagnostic, of course, if you go back, you see that Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen was the first person who have discovered the X-ray. That was the beginning. That was really a revolution for the first time that you could make something or get something from the body. Yeah. But that was wonderful for bone, for perhaps traumatologists and so. You see, that is the first picture he did and published at that time. But what about the brain? You must imagine the brain could not be visualized by X-ray, and today still not. And we couldn't see with X-ray. And what happened? Dandy was in 1918 the first person who gave air into the ventricle system and then could make pictures. 1927 minutes. He gave then contrast medium to arteries to go to the brain and make angiography. So if the arteries was a little bit moved to the left or right, I'd say it could be tumor. That I started my career in neurosurgery with these two tools, encephalography and angiography. And I had to do every day angiography here, carotid, and so, and then every day encephalography. My first scientific work started in that field because in encephalography we had overlapping of the structures. We couldn't see the details of the brain. We could see only the ventricle. You can see here the ventriculography shifting of the ventricle, but you couldn't exactly not know where the compression is coming. And in angiography, also only movement. But I had really an unbelievable privilege that at University of Mainz in 1964, I started, 65 already, there was an polycyclic tomography, which made also 1 millimeter tomography of the bone, and so they used also for the bone. And I heard about the Shiro and Wackenheim that they are doing by air study tomography, but linear tomography. But I used then polycyclic tomography, and I could make unbelievable pictures from the brain. I can show you, look at that. It looks almost like an MRI today. You see, you can see the ventricular system, cerebellum, fourth ventricle, lateral ventricle, and all the structures. And that fascinated me so that every day, before we went to do surgery, at least 1 to 3 cases encephalography I did by myself. 800 encephalography with tomography I have done, and finally I have found a lot of new disease by doing this technique at that time, and I published many papers, and I was the most wanted lecturer around the world to talk about the encephalotomography, because my picture was better than the linear tomography. So, for example, what you see here, this is a history of medicine, the first aqueduct occlusion which created hydrocephalus. How I have discovered that at that time? I have, of course, tried. I came to the idea because you know all today that encephalotomography, I think those who have done in their life, was not allowed to do it if somebody had a papilledema or increased brain pressure, so that you could have herniation, the patient would go to the coma. But I came to the idea, that was my first discovery. I said, I make first ventricular drainage and reduce the pressure. And when I do that, then I will not have herniation. I can give air study. So if you look here, after ventricular drainage, I give the air. And you can see the air stopped at this area. And where is the aqueduct? And then I give from here in the ventricular air, and the air came near the third ventricle and stopped at this point. So that was only a membrane. That was the first evidence of occlusion of the aqueduct to create, and which was visualized. Can you imagine if you are 26 years old and you discover such a thing, you know, you cannot sleep in the night, you know, you are always dreaming about it. And but as I have published a book about encephalotomography, but as I was so busy with that, suddenly came CT scan in '69, the first CT scan. And then we could see immediately, directly the brain, but in a terrible, I would say, shape. I was not only busy with that, that was my life, I have also other iron in fire, you know. I started in 1966 to use the microscope. And we were at that time perhaps 3 or 4 people. One of those people is my great friend, Gazi Yaşargi from Turkey. You know. We started at the same time with the microsurgery, 1966. Also he did at 67 the first bypass, and I did at 68 the bypass, 1 year later than him in the vascular. But I did in peripheral nerve. I was, that did a lot of new technologies for reconstruction of the nerves in brachial plexus, in everywhere in the body. Now, the macroscope, of course, gave us, this picture is very good to see that. The neurosurgeon have operated like this before microsurgery. Look, they had no light and also no magnification. So that microsurgery has revolutionized the neurosurgery, because we could then see the structures 5 times larger or 10 times larger, and we had direct light into the place, and later, of course, the endoscopy. And one field which was untouchable was the skull base. As I did a lot of peripheral nerve surgeries, and with peripheral nerve, I learned how to dissect the nerves, particularly cranial nerves, because through the skull base, the all 12 cranial nerves, right and left side, they go through and come to the body and to the face. And to save them, it was impossible without microscope, and you destroy it and you cut it. And so that I started to learn more and more how we can approach the skull base. But the other thing that was the technology changing our ideas, I made this picture because I said we have two half of brain. One half of brain of neurosurgeon has to look in the biology, the other in technology. I said at that time we must learn both of them. From one side is not enough. In the biology, we know that how much the development of the gene therapy came and cell transplantation as well as growth factor, but also very, very important, I will come back to that, inhibitory factors for tumors and to also in the brain. I will come back at the end and tell you one of the last discovery we have done in Hanover with my neurologist, Professor Freund, was to find out what happened in the brain that from one place we can have auxiliary and from other side we can have inhibitory factor. In the technology, when you go and see the development of the neuronavigation, I had to give a lecture recently because I am honorary president of German Society for computer-assisted surgery and robotic. This started 18 years ago. They came to me and I had to give. Ah, great. Yeah. And I had to give a lecture. The 1 hour last week was the Congress, and the navigation was something came first for the auto cars. We were happy that we can drive with navigation, go from one place to the others. And transferring this technology of navigation for in medicine was, of course, a challenge. And so that we wanted, of course, we know, as the technology was improving and we came to the details, and then we wanted to learn from the biology, how the cells functioning, how the others in our body functioning. And we wanted then take these and bring it into the computer for computer. So you know that sometimes was at least 10 years people were working on intelligence, also künstliche Intelligenz, also for the artificial intelligence, for artificial intelligence. Billions of dollars have been spent to create artificial intelligence, a computer which replaced the human brain. I can speak 1 hour about that, but I stop at that point. I will come only. I will then summarize that. Also, once the technology advanced and we could more and more localize in brain where we want to go, and also learn more and more on function, and to know where you are in the brain and to know which function the brain is had. Of course, the surgery becomes more and more safer. And as you have mentioned, we are trying everything to understand our brain. And that is the summary of everything what we are doing. We are still in the beginning of our learning of the brain. And I put this map of the world on the brain. And I said in one of my talk, I said, look, how many cells we have in the brain? 100 billions. And these 100 billions, they are working together. They must work together. Otherwise, we have to come to you. Is that correct? Well, they are not. And then you try to bring it with medication and so adjust it. what I am really surprised about the human being is we were at that time 5 billion and now perhaps reaching the 7 billion people. We have not learned how to bring these only 7 billion people with great peace together, to cooperate together on the earth and enjoy each other. And therefore I put this map over the brain to say this is, but we named that brain mapping. When we want to enter into the brain, we want to see how is the brain function. And what is the brain mapping? Anatomical and functional exposure of the region of interest, where we want really to act. And when we do that, that is a precondition today, in this house, when we want to touch the brain, it is our duty to apply everything before surgery to know what are in this area of functions. And I want to I would like to explain to you now that the brain mapping is based on 3 pillars. One is neuroimaging, and the neuroimaging I told you beginning was only an encephalography and an angiography, and then comes CT scan, and then comes MRI, and then the next is neuromonitoring. We must monitor the brain at different places, or on then neuronavigation. Now, today, neuroimaging information, as you see here, is of course very much extended. You can, from one single patient, have 1,000 images. And this makes our life very, very difficult and expensive. You should both together. And therefore I wrote here data reduction. I am sure in 10 years you will have in your hospital a team is doing that. Because the neurosurgeon was sitting 6-8 hours into operating and come out, and the patient, family and all around him has also to talk with him. He cannot go and sit and see 1,000 images to find out which one is relevant for surgery. So expert people from the neuroradiology, they have to look up all that, or neurologists, they have to prepare, and when the neurosurgeon comes and says, this is the patient, and there are these relevant, and you see how complicated it is. The neurologist must learn neurosurgery. The radiologist must learn also neurosurgery. Otherwise he cannot prepare and indicate the right examination, right images. They are all connected together. Otherwise, everything has to be done by one person. This is impossible. This is what I say today. In 10 years, you will see this is a reality, because there is nothing possible to do that. And you can see how many options is available. I don't go to details, but each one is important for itself. Each one has its own as I have planned the Neuroscience Institute in Hanover, as you see here, and in the shape of the brain. And then I have then, of course, tried to implant all
wie die
these
Krone der Schöpfung.
technologies
Ein Vorbild. Die Natur als Vorlage für perfekte Abläufe, Organisationsprozesse und nicht zuletzt eine perfekte Form. Die Basis für die Vision von Professor Madjid Samii'ye, kranke Menschen auf völlig andere, auf neue, innovative Art behandeln zu können. Auch der Blick hinein zeigt, wie konsequent die Architekten der Siemens-Tochter Fiat das Gebäude geplant haben. Das menschliche Gehirn stand Modell. Eine hochmoderne Klinik als eine Art architektonisches und technisches Spiegelbild des menschlichen Gehirns.
You know, as I told you, the surgery as we did, we were based on the anatomy. But believe me, we are sitting here, so many people. Each of us has another brain. They are not two. If my Broca is here, his Broca is 1 centimeter backwards or in front. So that we cannot rely on anatomy to do neurosurgery. It's impossible today. Then we have started to learn the corticography. What means corticography? To find the cortex, where the motor cortex, where is the Broca. But after a certain time, we have seen if we know the cortex for motor cortex for speech is here, but what is when we go in the depth and the tumor is done in the depth extended and we have to remove it, when we are going and cutting the fibers which are between Broca and Wernicke, then the patient loses then the speech. So that more and more the tractography becomes, also DTI become of a great importance. And we were very proud that in Europe, the first 3 Tesla in 2000 from Siemens at that time we had in our, and we could then do this functional MRI for our patient. Now, of course, you must imagine that to have such a sogenannte workstation in your hospital, you can simulate the operation before surgery. You can, but also at the same time, educate the young assistant residents. You know, they can then learn more what will happen by the surgery. And of course, this has, practice has become the fiber tracking, become also more and more the exposure of the fibers a routine in the major hospitals who are doing the surgery. This is a patient which every neurosurgeon must say inoperable. I would say that. He came from Moscow, and my friend, Professor Konovalov, really is one of the greatest neurosurgeons of our time, was a doctor, and said is inoperable, but go to Hanover, look what Dr. Sami's opinion is. And as she came and had a hemiparesis, mother of 3 children, doctors. And as I saw that, and of course we said we make a brain mapping and we make a functional MRI, as you see here, and I say, okay, when I decide to come from here, then I have fornix here, and I will then probably destroy in some way the short memory of the patient. If I come from this side, this is the pyramidal system. It is the thalamus. Thalamus, this is all is thalamus here. So I cannot go through the thalamus. And finally, I have looked at all these pictures. At least 3-4 days I was going home and sleeping and walking around, and finally I saw why I cannot come from the other side. Transsulcal, that was a method which I have started already 30 years ago, because I said when I am going inside of the brain, why I should not use the streets. The brain has a lot of streets. The streets are the sulcuses. And some streets is even 4 centimeter depth. You know. So you can open, and the brain has so-called viscoelasticity. Viscoelasticity means you can count, even it is 1 millimeter the space of the sulcus, you can slowly open. You can open up to 10 millimeters without damaging the cortex in this sulcus. And I have said, look, the only place that this part of the tumor is free in the ventricle is this part. When I go through a sulcus and open just a little bit here, the brain enter into the ventricle, then from that side, I can then remove this tumor. Thanks to, from Nathan, you can see here the decision how to come and then reach this tumor. This transsulcal approach, you can see, that is what I have done, and removed the tumor completely. I was, of course, very happy. You can see here and here. And this is the patient about 10 days after surgery. The paresis become better because the compression was gone. And with this transsulcal approach, of course, we have done a lot of cases. I will perhaps, if there is time, I can, please, you can tell me stop, and I stop immediately, you know, that if I am going to. So the next is neuromonitoring. Neuromonitoring, I think you should also have in your department here. It's very important that intraoperative control of the brain. And for neuromonitoring, we can do the local stimulation to see if there is a motor cortex or not. This is very important. Or you go, you have something in the pons, you come to the fourth ventricle, you can the location of facial nucleus, have the location of abducens, and all this, as well the caudal cranial nerve, you can see that. It can help a lot. Or for tumors in CP angle, if you monitor the hearing, facial nerve, abducens nerve. I had just yesterday a tumor petroclival where abducens were inside of petroclival. The facial nerve was compressed. Trigeminal was also involved. Fourth nerve was involved. And all this was monitored. And I could really preserve all of them and remove the tumor on hearing, of course. And because if you just push a little bit the cerebellum, the evoke potential for hearing, they change. And you can stop until it recovers, and then you can continue again. So that neuromonitoring is very important. This is, for example, a tumor here, a cavernomas here in intrapontine. It is very important, of course, to find first the position of the facial nerve and abducens nerve and all the other structure, and to remove that. This is only example. But neuronavigation. Neuronavigation is really one of the very fantastic discovery of our time, that you can, you have some inaccuracy for 1 or 2 millimeters. That doesn't matter. I think some neurosurgeons who have all experiences, they know when the tumor was here and the craniotomy was done here, you know, and they were surprised why where is the tumor? They have not found the tumor. But by neuromonitoring, that cannot happen because you know exactly where the tumor is. Your craniotomy is perfect. This is really fantastic situation to localize your craniotomy exactly where you want to go. But for transsulcal approach is also neuromonitoring. Neuronavigation is very important, because when you want to have that sulcus you want to enter, you make your craniotomy exactly above that. You know that when we open the dura and we lose then the CSF, then there is a shifting of the brain. So then it's very difficult to rely on the monitoring. You can forget it. You should then put away the navigation system. Your navigation must be then come back and work. But as long as the dura is closed, you can use, and then you can see the sulcus. And then you can open the dura and see the sulcus under the dura. I have done 35 years ago, before neuronavigation came, I used this sulcal approach in a girl, Italian girl. Her father was a good friend of mine and was medical student. Came to me with this lesion. And can you see that? And started to have problem of hand and arm, and here coming to the thalamus. This is relatively on the left side. Left side, we had at that time no brain mapping, but I saw that here there is a street. But how I come exactly to that street? That was at that time the question. But I had an idea what to do it as a neurosurgeon. I show you the next, look at that. How beautiful this street is. That would, these were at that time, 35 years ago, left side, refused by every neurosurgeon in the world. Am I right or not? And then I say, I will use the estrotactic frame, because estrotactic frame is very, very old and very precise. When you have the estrotactic frame, your needle, because we did also for Parkinson, for many other estrotactic frame, I took the estrotactic frame to just to localize this part. I didn't want to localize this lesion, but just that I say I make a craniotomy here and I come there and to do that. Before neural navigation came into, look at that. That is the estrotactic frame. This picture are 35 years old. And you see, the sulcus which I wanted, you see a small craniotomy was at that time, I did also small craniotomy. When I knew where I am, I had no problem. And then I controlled, sonography was always existing. You know, I used the sonography to be again sure, and you can see that that is the sonography and showed me then the location when I was. And finally, I have put the needle of estrotactic frame. That was the sulcus I was expecting. And look at that. You see the brain, all are safe. I open the sulcus. And finally, this is the cavernomas, which I have exposed. And then is removed, and look at that. This girl is now is married, four children, and then is a very, really prominent anesthesiologist, you know, working as anesthesiologist, as I had, you see. But the transsulcal became for me a very, very important fact for deep-seated here. That is the girl. For deep-seated, that is after surgery. You know. For deep-seated structure, I show you another case, a lawyer from Berlin, young girl, just finished the university, and on the left side, and here must be Broca, and somewhere here Wernicke, and had also one. At that time, we had the brain mapping, and now I did the brain mapping, and you can see how beautiful is. You see here there is a sulcus. I have tried then to use the sulcus, but I wanted to know in the brain mapping what is what is going on. You can see that here is the lesion, and when we look from the side, then you can see this is the Broca, that is the Wernicke, that is the venectasie, and here was our sulcus. So that I could go in between and into the sulcus and remove this, this pathology, and you can see that here. You can see this is the sulcus I opened. That is venectasie here. Also the venectasie means if you rupture that, then the patient has all the symptoms. And was possible to, you can see that is the post-operative MRI, and these large cavernomas could be removed with this transsulcal approach to the deep area. Today we have this opportunity with brain mapping. This is the venectasie here. When you rupture this, the patient had a swelling, bleeding in the whole temporal lobe, had all the symptoms, you know, so that all the three, not only the Broca and Wernicke, but this also has to be preserved. This is another example, but it is more difficult because this was a cavernoma with bleeding. This is a bleeding under the cortex, motocortex, under the motocortex. But here we had no sulcus directly to go to the but we have found there is laterally, that is the sulcus centralis, central sulcus. Then I said, okay, I open here and I go from lateral to the to this pathology, and you can see it was working here. That is the central sulcus, and from here I opened then the bleeding and the cavernome without going through the cortex to create more paresis of the leg, you know. So that I show you that you see that one of the fantastic development of the neurosurgery is, you see here, just 3-4 millimeter open. This is of course it is magnified. What you see here is under microscope 10 times. You see, we have reached that. This is also something that's very, very interesting, because this is exactly, when you look the other side, is 100% under the motosensory cortex. Also, such a layer over this tumor. Normally, if you look at literature, and so you go here inside, and then push down the brain to the side to come to this tumor. But you have to push to the side these two important regions of the brain. You know, she was from Uruguay, was in the United Nations ambassador, and came, but she could laugh, everything was okay. And then I said, why I should not go here, through the sulcus, and reach the tumor without touching the motor cortex. And so this is so obvious, you know, when you have the experience with that. And look at that. And this is so that you should have a look where the motor cortex is. Here is the motor cortex. You see this part. Yeah, and here, this is the brain mapping, what we have done. And then I use the sulcus here, and I come easy to the tumor here. That is the sulcus, and I am already inside of the tumor. Look at that. Without touching the cortex in the eloquent area. So that, of course, like an acoustic neuron, I always need, even if the acoustic is 5 centimeter, I need only 1 centimeter to come inside. I hold it then from all sides and remove it without touching the other. Exactly the same technique which I have developed for acoustic neurinoma or meningioma. And so here you can see, and but believe me, I am so surprised that 90% of neurosurgeons don't understand that when I say that, to do that. Say, I can do it, I have done it also successfully. Yes, you have done it, but 50% of them, they were hemiplegic, after seeing, but they forget it, I'm sorry. You see, that is the falx, what you see here. That's the falx, here. That is the deep cut, the cortex is, that is the lady, and you see, few days after surgery, is walking without having any problem. And therefore, I can really recommend use the transcervical approach, sometimes from other way as you are usually using to remove the tumor, and you have 20-30% complication. You can avoid this 30% complication. This is also something you can, when I show that to any neurosurgeon and ask, how do you want a young boy, do you want to remove this tumor? Look at that. It is supratentorial, here come into the infratentorial part, and here is lamina quadrigemina, and if you come here, perhaps you can remove this part, but not this part. You have to destroy the lamina quadrigemina. Also without really morbidities, you cannot remove this tumor. Also here, I have decided to use the transcervical approach, as you see here, to come, I think better, yeah, to come to the tumor. But you must imagine, when I come, here is the center of tumor. The tumor goes up and the tumor down. And once I take in the middle this, and slowly, slowly I can bring that part down and the other side from down up without approaching me to the surrounding area of the tumor. Here, look, that is only the opening of this huge tumor, small, that is perhaps 2 centimeters, not more. And to use this sulcus and then open that is the middle part of the tumor. That was a dermoid. There was hair inside, and so you can see. Yeah, this is the part which I am elevating from below, coming out. After the middle part is gone, here, after middle is gone, and now I am elevating this up. And now, and the next one, and is the tumor is completely removed. Look at that. The patient had Parinaud syndrome before surgery and was also had an enormous imbalance. And 3 months later, look at that. Parinaud was gone and balance was perfect without one single problem or the deficit here. You see the eye can move in every direction. Now, I would like to show you something which are very exciting also. When we have a brain tumor, yes, I want to talk about brain tumor, we never know how the brain is moving, in which direction. When you see the tumor, you cannot guess, is the motor area anterior to that, or is posterior, is it medial or lateral? You can see here, all options in this drawing. And this is an example from our cases. This is the normal position of the healthy side of the hand. That is the tumor. And the hand is divided in 2 parts. One is moved to the area where normally leg is, and one is moved more laterally. And of course, when we have something like this, there is a question, what is this? Is that a displacement of the previous existing cortex? Or it is the reorganization through the plasticity of the brain? This is the question that we discuss. At the moment, we are in this discussion, in this controversy. In some cases, I can say it's displacement. In some cases, I can say it is a reorganization. In some cases, we don't know it. And this is interesting, published. It's not my case, it's a published case, that a man who had an amputation, and when he touched his face, and he felt the arm. You can see the arm area was moved to the area of the face. And this is evidence that there is a possibility of movement of the centers also from one area to the other area. This case, a 14-year-old girl, daughter of a colleague, anesthesiologist, came without, I would say, having great problems. Only general had seizure. Because of seizure, then, but no paralysis, and we have done this MRI. With this MRI, he came to me. Patient has no paralysis, not at all, only seizure. You can give some tablet and go home, you know, because which surgeon wants to operate someone and after operation with hemiplegic person sent home? But as it is almost, I would say, perhaps 90 years ago, as I started in 18 years ago, we started in INI. That was one of the first cases come to INI. And yes, look at that, what we have seen. That is very interesting. Here, yeah, excuse me, oh my goodness. That is very important that you see. The motor cortex is on the side of the tumor is moved anteriorly. And if you compare the both sides, you see that at their side, that is the tumor is as a 1 centimeter at least anteriorly, and the other side is in the normal place. So because of that, I have decided to, even it is the central region, according to anatomy, I have decided to do the surgery. Here the girl, and here the exposure. That is the tumor area. We had also this venous system could give us very exact orientation. But despite of this fact, as I told you, I tried to stimulate the brain to be sure that I am not removing the motor cortex. Here, and then you see this completely removed. And here you see that the resection, MRI after surgery, but the leg is unchanged. This is the beauty of brain mapping before surgery, to be absolutely sure where you are, how you can preserve the function. This is a highlight, I must say. This girl was from former Yugoslavia. She was interpret of 5 languages. Look, the tumor, that was a recurrence. By the first surgery, they have removed only a little bit here. Yeah. But now you can see how the tumor is extended, and the patient had no problems, but the tumor was growing. And came to us, and I asked our Professor Freund to make a brain mapping, whether we should operate or not, and came to me, showed me something, but never you can accept that, but it was the case. Can you see here? Broca normally is the lower gyrus of frontal lobe. It is moved in the lower gyrus of temporal lobe. Can you imagine that? It's unbelievable. And here. Then I have decided, okay, I operate, but I don't come normally so to the tumor, I will come from here. Also from anterior approach to come to the media and then try from here to remove the tumor, not from here. And this is what I have done. And you can see the girl after surgery. And then you can see here the first control intraoperative MR. This part was gone, but this part still is there, tumor. And then I went around the middle cerebral artery and then removed the other part. And here you see optic nerve, carotid artery, and this is the area of the speech, what we had. So she had not one single problem for language after the surgery. Thanks to this new, I would say, and this is her father, you can see here, after surgery, and this is, you see that this part, we did the last picture after removal of the posterior to the middle cerebral artery. This is also interesting case. This was a cavernoma, and you can see that is the region of the hand on the healthy side. And cavernoma is exactly at the place where the hand is of the other side. And this boy, 25 years old, from childhood had this cavernoma, had some bleeding, and all neurosurgeons have refused to touch him. And he couldn't, he has a apraxia, and he was not able to use then the hand for such a long time. But after doing the MRI, we have seen that the hand is moved not only laterally, but also caudally here. And then, if you look at that, after surgery was, and this is the hand under the area of the, and I have removed that completely. And this is something that I would like to tell you, which we have discovered in Hanover in the last 15 years. Through this cavernoma, the area where the hand here was, even the brain was completely normal. But this AVM had a so-called inhibitory influence to the normal area, which is now experimentally has been proven. If you have a lesion in somewhere, here even you have lesion, you can have a functional deficit in 3 centimeter distance through the synapses and other nerve cells, and what you have a connection with the other, with circuits that happened between the cells. And after I have removed it 2 weeks after surgery, he improved remarkably well and could use the hand for the first time since decades. It started really then to use the hand with her mother. You cannot imagine how happy they were. This is only possible to do it when you have the brain mapping. This is also, I think, last part of my presentation. Look at this lesion. This is such a dysplasia. You know the dysplasia of the brain can happen. This dysplasia can, of course, create functional deficit in many places, but including seizure. But if you remove that, the seizure is gone and the paresis then recovered. That is what we have published this paper of many cases, and you can see here. That is a lesion. But through this circuit, what they created, here is a normal area, then you have the pathological discharge in the normal area. And this is something the neurosurgeon have to learn. I am sure it takes another 10, 20 years until everybody really realized that that happened. And here is the experimental work, that there is a region, you can here get a pathological discharge. Region. This is in the animals now, have been proven in the meantime. Now, I show you the 2, 3 cases which are exactly the same. This girl also was from Moscow, 10 years old girl, had a focal seizures many times per day. And we have done CT scan, MRI, EEG, no signs of pathology in relation to seizure. Please keep in your mind, it's very important if you have such a patient. Normally, you will say, we have no pathology and some drugs, she had some drugs from our colleagues, and you send patient home. My neurologist, Professor Freund, who is really a great scientist, he told me, let us make a PET, positron emission tomography. For the first time, also in my life, no, I did a lot of positron, for such a case, we have done. Look at that. What we have seen is, we have seen that on the right side, on the left side, we had the diminished of the metabolism of in PET. That is the healthy side, that is the other side. Professor Freund told me, this is the cause. You should operate. I said, no, I don't do that. Because this is exactly the motor cortex area. I have looked several times, that was exactly over the gyrus percentralis. I said, okay, I will speak with the mother. I said to mother, look, this is a situation. If you accept, I open, but intraoperatively I will this area stimulate. If there is no movement of leg and so, I remove it. But if I see it, then I close it. And I come to you and say, I'm sorry, we have a, it is not a, my neurologist, he is convinced that this, that is the cause, but that is a chance we can use it. You know, I don't like to do such a surgery when I am not 100% sure that the surgery will really bring some result for the patient, you know. That was very difficult for me to make decision. Finally, we did then, just look at that. You see the PET and here. So, we stimulate here, we didn't see anything. Here was the leg. And close to the leg was hand, arm. And here was motor cortex, here. 3, 4 times I stimulated, nothing happened. No movement, nothing. And then I started to remove the motor cortex in this area. And look, I have make the resection here completely. And then you see the intraoperative defect of the area which I have removed. And after, that is the Professor Freund. Really, I admire him so much. I have learned so much from him, you cannot imagine. And the girl had paresis in the arm, hand, before surgery. And look at that. No deficit anymore. And the seizure was gone. And the Professor Freund reduced the tablets, medication to the 0. And that is this is a situation that the same pathology, that was a dysplasia, you know. And the things, 2 phenomena. For seizure were an excitatory, for functional deficit were inhibitory. Also both were together in this case. And this we have seen. Yeah, this is a boy, that is probably my last case, who had a tetraparesis, that is infantile, severe cerebral tetraparesis, right more than left. And we have seen in this case that there is such a brain malaise after bleeding, on the left side more than on the right side. And Professor Freund's mapping, he told me that this area, which is central region, that the patient has paralysis that is absolutely intact. When we remove these scars, which has the inhibitory factor, then this region will start to work. And finally, the same procedure we have decided, and then we have done here, this is the preoperative, and finally you see these scars. And we have removed the scar, lesionectomy in the left side, but look how sharp I have removed. You can see here and here. Remove the entire scars here, and the parent, they came to me and say they have seen that the patient has better function, so please can you do the other side? 2 weeks later, also we have done also the other side, and here, that is the other side. And now you can see here this boy after surgery. And I think you can imagine that if you see such a cases, your adrenaline level in your blood increase, you know, because when you see a boy around 10 years old or 11, and all the life, because this bleeding came after the birth, and all the life was not using, the hand was like this, and now was able to open the hand, and that was the first time that the boy was able to start to move. And also the other side is also better. You can see that it started to move and elevate even the arm for the first time after such a. This is a message that I am giving in the last at least 8-10 years to the world, to all congresses, but it is difficult to understand that. It's not so difficult, but I have not. We have published 2012 the first paper on that, and I am sure there are thousands of such patients, thousands of such. I hope here in your brain hospital we will operate many of these cases and then enjoy that. And this is something that makes me more happy. I said those things that the other people can do it, I left them to do it. I would like to do those surgery that people say I don't like to do it. and it makes me 10 times more happy than, yeah, you can see here. Yeah, and that was, last but not least, I'm sure I heard that you are planning the intraoperative MR, which is also another development for the current situation of neurosurgery. And we have this since 2007 with their, that is the Philips, it is the Siemens concept, but we have developed now a Philips concept, which is going to be in China and in Iran installed. And with this technique, of course, we can follow the tractography during surgery. That is, when there is shifting and we don't know where we are, we can do the MRI, and we can then again have, with that situation, the shifting. Here is that is one example. That was a boy, came to us 9 years old, but only a biopsy, and then we have seen that the pyramidal system was moved then anteriorly, and so that we have done, see that made a one control, and you see that the shifting came back after the surgery, as you see here. This is interesting, a tumor which is in the occipital lobe, and the tractography of the optic nerve here to the optic center here was here available before surgery, but on the side of tumor was not available. And you can see then during, oh la la, I think the battery is gone, and anyway, I am at the end of the, his energy is gone, but mine is still not. But but I would like to congratulate you and congratulate all my colleagues in Turkey that you were so intelligent that say we should create a brain hospital. I told you, this name, brain hospital, the name itself has a value we cannot measure it. You know, really, believe me. And therefore, I promised you, I told you, my surprise for you is that we will create a link between your center and the Hanover Center, so that we will then exchange our everything, whatever we are doing, that your patients here will receive the same quality of what we have experienced over the years. Also, my experience is now of almost half a century, more than half a century, and then we are not in a situation that we are living with that what we had in the past. No, we are trying to go further, expose those areas which is still not discovered, I hope, and that is the reason why I am working hard still in Hanover, around the world. Why? I am convinced there are a lot of things still to discover in benefit only of our patients. Thank you very much for your Here's my connector.
Yeah, should we get it now or?
No, it's okay.
Huh? Okay, thank you. Profesör Doktor Sayın Madjid Samii'ye teşekkür ediyoruz. Bugün anısına kendisine bir takdimimiz daha olacak. Rektörümüz Profesör Doktor Nevzat Tarhan'ı ve Profesör Doktor Kaya Aksoy'u hisseden adam takdim için sahneye davet ediyorum. Thank you, Professor Sami, for this illuminating conference. In remembrance of today, we have another presentment to you. I kindly ask our President, Professor Nevzat Tarhan, and Professor Kaya Aksoy to come on stage and present our gift, the filler. Toplu fotoğraf çekimi için sizleri sahneye davet ediyorum. I ask you all to come on stage for a family photo.